I've combined Eurorack modular with my wall of test equipment, and in the process created a ridiculous TR-style drum machine. Hi, I'm Heinbach and it's good to have you back. In this video, I'm going to show you how I combined the wall of test equipment with Eurorack and the advantages and disadvantages this brings. That way you can see for yourself if this is too mad of an undertaking for you or it's something you would like to explore too. As usual, you'll find a chunky sample pack accompanying this video on my Patreon. Your support there is what keeps this channel going. Thank you very much. When I started using test equipment for music, I did not want to combine it with Eurorack, for the simple reason that I like to explore things purely. I wanted to see how test equipment music works, and that requires a lot of roundabout ways to create rhythms, because these things in general just want to go boo in one steady line. I found a few things that helped along the way. One of them is the HP Booger, or 8006A if you want to be boring, naming it conventionally. The Booger is a descendant of the Telegraph, and it's basically a 16-step or 32-step even pulse sequencer. I've got a full video on that you can watch here. The Booger allowed me to create rhythms that transcended my experimental niche and even made it to Germany's biggest stadiums. But the Booger is a fragile unit. According to Hans Kulk at Willem II, it tends to overheat, and even though I left it enough space in my rack here, it still died. Both of them, 2 times. So the expense got so bad for servicing that I thought this makes no more sense, because part of test equipment is, for me at least, that it was all cheap. I got much of this wall for the same price that I got this modular here, and that's a good return on investment, I would say. So I decided to let reason prevail and go to Schneider's Laden, which I don't think people say. You don't go to Schneider's Laden to let reason prevail. You go there to spend money on modules, which is lovely, but it's not a reasonable thing. So I decided to switch out the Boogers with Eurorack. Before we go into the modules, what actually creates the sounds you hear in these rhythms? I've assembled 5 Lockin amplifiers here. These are basically selective amplifiers made to sniff out tiny fluctuations in the highest of noise used in nuclear research. And I've got 2 Princeton Applied Research Model 121 here and 2 Model 124A down here. The 121 and the 220 are simple models that allow you to create wonderful pings and deep basses. The 124A down here are more complex, because there you can set different settings for the filter and the tracking frequency. This allows for simple FM modulated sounds, perfect for cowbells or more twisted metallic sounds. These 5 Lockin amplifiers serve as the backbone of the rhythms. I find the texture to be super interesting. The only thing that's kind of equivalent is the second voice, or maybe the first voice on the Pulsar 23, which is a lovely instrument, but this just sounds different. And because you've got so much range to tune, I feel it hits a bit more powerful because it's not as musical. The Pulsar, as wild as it is already an instrument, and it has like a musical intention. These don't have musical intentions. And that's another thing I'm going to circle back later, because in combining the Eurorack with this, something changed. There are 3 filters here that are used to ping or self-oscillate. 2 Princeton Applied Research 189, which is exactly the filter of the original ARP 2500 in test equipment form. Down here is a Boolean Care 2121 selective filter. I made a video on that where it was broken, and it stayed broken until I had it fixed. And this one just sings beautifully. These filters, when pinged, are not as aggressive as the Lockin amplifiers, and I have to use hardcore analog computing math to make them really raw. Therefore, I'm employing the Stanford Research Systems Boxcar Averager, mainly the analog processor modules, which do all kinds of combinations of 2 signals. All the tiny clicky sounds that are the classic test equipment hi-hat. Only I say classic test equipment hi-hat. There's no such thing. Let's call it, let's stay with me for that. The classic test equipment hi-hat comes from these 3 filters. Boolean Care 2113 audio frequency spectrometer and bandpass filter type 1615. I like them for their woodiness. They sound very real, and I can finally tune them in their frequencies because they offer both octaves and thirds in their filtering process. Stockhausen's earth-shaking bass drum, alias the Rode & Schwarz UBM, provides the heavy, deep bass. And I've got one down here. It's just the best bass drum I know. I really love its texture. And yeah, it's special to me. Everything is mixed through these 3 passive mixes that can help and bring down the level of these machines because it is very hot. And then it runs into this Tascam Porter Studio, which I absolutely love for its raw sound. I really find that Tascam boards and test equipment, they just go so well together because even the Porter Studio breaks up lovely with test equipment levels. I prefer it to more high-end mixers even, because they're a little less forgiving. So They stay cleaner. This is not a clean board, but it has attitude. Because these are not musical instruments, but scientific instruments, they throw out a lot of stuff in the low frequency that you don't really need. There's signals down there at 0.1 hertz, and a lot of them, so you don't want that. Also, there's stuff up top, like that I don't even hear anymore. 17.5 kilohertz. My ears stop at 16.5 now, which is sad, but yeah, that's how it is. So I rely on variable bandpass filters by Krone and Hyde to filter out all these unmusical signals. And that really cleans up the mix and helps it translate way better. Core of the Eurorack setup are two sequencers. The first is from Shakmat, and it's the 4 Briggs Rooks. This is wonderful because it allows me to punch in notes. Very simple, very fun, so easily playable, and that was something that was important to me. That's part of the workflow that I enjoy about the Pulsar 23, the way you can play your own rhythms, but are also able to sequence them, because mixing something rigidly sequenced with something humanly played, I think there's where the magic lies. The second sequencer is the Döpfer 157 trigger matrix, and that's just too cool. So, simple bass drum and go and start. Oh, too much bass. This system can spit out so much bass that it will overwhelm the vintage broadcast gear I use on the master bus. Lockin amplifier. Second 124A. Hi-hat maybe. Bit more hi-hat. The clock from all of this comes from the Make Noise Vogelbach. But I also have a noise ring here because I think the clock from that can be a bit more shuffly. Let me check if I'm correct. Do you feel that too? That has a shuffle. So 4 Briggs Rooks and Döpfer are the trigger sequencers. 2 different clocks to use and also send random signals to other things in this setup, because I can now modulate things in time, which I couldn't before, which is glorious. If I want to make more complex sequences, I can use 2 sequential switches here by Döpfer. A151, one of my favorite modules ever since I got into modular. Now, how do I get these signals to the odd connectors that test equipment uses? Because as you can see, this is banana on the Brilliant Keras. And then we also have B and C. These are 2 different kinds of connectors, and it can be utterly frustrating sometimes when you go into adapter hell. But luckily, there's a shop in Germany called perakabel.de that offers jack to BNC cables of a good quality. I haven't had one of these fail yet. If you have to go from BNC to banana, there's these kind of adapters. They're handy, but I don't really like them because they offer more strain on the jack, because suddenly you've got 2 cables like Lockin around here. They're not that great quality, so oftentimes these are reversed, so you need to figure out if ground is really ground and signal is really signal. So I try to avoid these, but at some points it's not possible to avoid them. So the best way that I found to go from jack in Eurorack to banana are the Test Eagle modules by Metro Modular. I ordered these from Australia and they're absolutely wonderful. They offer the correct impedance, you can lower the level, which can be really helpful because some of the signals are louder than a Eurorack system. I just plug a jack in here and then go to the Brilliant Gears, for example. I encountered one technical problem. As you can hear, this is nice and snappy. But if we take this cable and plug it directly here, you can hear it triggers twice. And that's due to the Dupfer having a longer trigger than the very punchy trigger on the 4 rooks. So all filters in the system will trigger on the rising and on the falling edge of the impulse, which creates this kind of like horse feeling. Interesting, but you don't want that all the time. There are 2 ways to avoid this. The simplest would be a gate to trigger converter, which is a simple module. There's one by ADAC that's pretty affordable, or you can build yourself one of these. They're not hard to make. I think it's just a diode and a resistor. I haven't done them myself because right now I'm doing another thing. I'm using envelopes. So I've got maths here and down here I've got the mega maths, or the maths from the past, part of an analog computing setup. Again, Princeton Applied Research, the Model 175 Universal Programmer, which is basically a complex sweep or envelope generator. This huge thing is connected directly to the Rohde & Schwarz UBM because they play so well together. I've found that changing the envelope on something as sensitive as these filters makes a huge impact on how the kick drum sounds. And I've got 10 turn pots to basically adjust the trigger exactly so the UBM will ping nicely. There are other modules here that are in the to be experimented with in the future phase. I want to see if I can get a Lockin amplifier to track with this maybe. I want to see if I can use the random step by DivKit to create interesting new shapes to modulate things. I want to see if I can sample and make some nice reels from the test equipment when I'm not using the integrated tape loops on the Tascam Porter Studio. And I want to integrate the Crackle box that ADAC made for some. Yeah, this is gonna be lovely running this into the, oh, is it power? Oh yeah, it's power. This is gonna be lovely running this into the filters. Come on, this is gonna be magic. But that's all for another video, not for now. Won a lot by integrating the Eurorack, but I also lost something. Working with word generators is doing more things by ear, even though you get a little bit of feedback where positions are by setting the switches. But much of this was experimentation and listening. And it felt a bit more wild. When I installed this, especially the trigger matrix, I felt like I just built a 909. This is a very different feeling. I felt odd after the first 2 tracks I made here. Was like, is this too much control? Am I now losing a sense of unpredictability? Have I made things too comfortable to me? So I had to make 2 more tracks to see if that was the case. And luckily, I don't think so. I do still more on the 2 boogers, but I love being able to put a sound exactly where I want it to be. And also to just play up top. And there's so much other functions that I haven't explored with these, like pendulum and chaos in itself. You can modulate the clock. There's so much more I can do. yet it still feels a bit convenient now. That's probably good because, yeah, this is my rhythm machine now. I really enjoy this. It's ridiculous, it's huge, but the rhythms I do here, they're me, they're special. This is my sound, and I love combining it with a piano or anything else. And finding your own sound and process how you want to make music is absolutely priceless. If you want to know more about test equipment music, how to do it and such, there's a lot of information on my channel. Just look for the test equipment playlist. And if you have any more questions, do let me know in the comments below. And thank you all for watching. I'll be seeing you in the next one. Bye.